There are two kinds of folks in this world, the initiators and the reactors. To understand the mentality of these two categories, we first need to understand what instincts prime us as human beings. So, human beings are at best glorified animals, at least we like to think like that. But biologically and evolutionarily, we are all derived from the unicellular organisms that have gone up the evolutionary cycle through different species to be coming across as mammals and as human beings and primates. So basically, we are animals, although we like to distinguish ourselves as Homo sapiens. Sapiens part means wise. So there has to be a component of sentient wiseness, consciousness coming in, and that is attributed to the development of forebrain, the neocortex, which helps us to think. So that is the biological background that we have to come in before we philosophically and psychologically excavate the initiators and reactors. So the hippocampus, or the subconscious brain, in general is good with emotions, and that's the part that is reactors. Like, emotions make you feel, so that comes to you automatically or reflexly, if you want to be more precise. And consciousness creates thoughts. It can create logical thinking, but in general it creates images, visualizations. It creates thoughts, ideas, patterns. So that is the active initiator part. So in general, if you want to attribute brain portions, you can think of the neocortex in the Homo sapiens as developing the wiseness component of thoughts, and the thoughts will obviously influence the feelings in the hippocampus or the subconscious. So there's two different portions of the brain that are working sometimes in sync and sometimes in divergence to create two kinds of ideas. One is of thoughts, which are hopefully logical thoughts, and the other one is of emotions, which we do not feel a lot of control over because they are being derived from the subconscious portions of the brain, including the hippocampus, which is the center for urge of cravings, the center of thirst, center for rage, sex. All of them are kind of embedded in the hippocampus. And of course, some of it is relayed through the thalamus, which is the filter portion of the brain as to which thoughts or emotions we act upon and which we will repress to the best of our abilities. Okay, so now thinking about initiators. These are folks who are putting out a vibe out there that will hopefully influence and sometimes counteract the vibe that is present around them or the vibe that is being thrown towards them. So think of them as the server in tennis. So he's serving, and the other person will have to return the ball back to the server depending on how they feel about the first shot that was shot at them. So the initiator, if he sends a good vibe, say a vibe of gentle, love, compassion, with a beautiful, graceful look in their eye, that gesture of love, because most of us are animals and animals tend to react, they tend to respond, will be reciprocated by love, unless they have an ulterior motive of hate that will require more and more love to kind of be turned around. But initially, your first vibe should be a positive vibe of love, gentleness, kindness, and just be kind to people. There doesn't have to be a reason why you're being kind. Just make it your natural personality. And that way, you will see a lot of kindness being bounced back to you. And that's why if you do good, good things come to you. And the reason for that is people tend to be reactors. If you spew hate, anger, slander them, obviously they will try to slander you back, because it's hard at that point for someone to initiate love. But if you are an initiator, even if someone is slandering hate, love, malice towards you, your viewpoint should be to revert it with love and gentleness and compassion. And all you need to do is look towards them and say few words of compassion. If you say lengthy statements, that comes across as glib and disingenuous. Just look in their eyes and maybe say yes, okay, and just say something which is very kind. And you can even compliment them at that point. That just helps a little to kind of turn them around and confuses them, like, hey, you are trying to be kind to me when I'm trying to be rude to you. So it kind of throws them off their game, if you will. So that's the power of the initiators, who will create a vibe that will probably be caught up by the other individuals or the individuals they are interacting with, and they will reciprocate the similar vibe over time. But if they're extremely angry, then you have to tap into their emotional subconscious part, because those parts are being fired by the subconscious brain. So they would not respond to logic at that point. It's kind of asking a lot from that individual, because they are in their rage mode, the rut mode. It can happen with lust. It can happen with feelings of passion, anger, or any craving you are in, which you feel utterly out of control towards that object of sensual gratification, or that vibe that you're carrying, be it anger, greed, or anything of that nature. So at that point, the best bet we have is still go with love and say something which is very emotional, like, oh, that will hurt the individual that you are going towards you. That does not sound like you. That's not you. And something which is, again, very rhythmic and emotional and said with genuine compassion, with visualization of that individual as a good person when you say that, because that is, again, sending a positive vibe towards that person, which will make them reconsider, if not right then, 10, 30 seconds later, and get back to you. But either ways, you have always to be an initiator. If you are a sentient, wise human being, your goal in life is to be initiator. Always say good things. If someone says bad things towards you, you still reciprocate with goodness, because that shows you are an aware individual who has the capability and the capacity to not only absorb all the negativity that is being fired towards you, but you don't bounce off any negativity. Only positivity comes out of you. And that is the level of control you have to exercise with practice over time. And that only comes through voluntary suppression of the senses. So you have to start somewhere, right? So the best place to start to develop these feelings and thoughts is control of the environment. So you control over what you eat, what you see, what you listen. Those are the senses that are under main control. So you do intermittent fasting, you do profound visualizations in your meditations, and you hear kirtan or chanting music, because then you are recruiting your senses towards service of divinity and service of someone who is higher than you. Because if this ego, we cannot kill it, the best thing we can do with it is to make it a slave of something that is more gratuitous and something that is bigger than ourselves, which is the Paramatma, or the Supreme Consciousness. So, my friends, to sum it up, always try to be an initiator. A cardinal initiator is an individual who creates a vibe, hopefully a positive vibe, out in the environment, and then the individuals who are surrounded will probably catch it and reciprocate it with a similar vibe, because then those individuals are the followers, are the reactors, you can call them nuclear reactors, who are going to bounce off the same energy that came towards them, because it's going to hit them in terms of feelings in the subconscious, and towards thoughts in the conscious, and the natural processing is to process what was thrown towards you. If someone says hello to you, they are the initiator, and when you say hello, how are you doing back to them, you are the responder. And remember, friends, initiators win the game of life. It's spiritually, metaphorically, metaphysically, in all the realms, physical realms, and you have to be an initiator all the time, which means you don't let a negative vibe percolate you, any anger, slander that comes your way percolate you. You just kind of absorb it and send a positive vibe no matter what. Just be kind and loving to people without any ulterior motives. Just do it, because then it becomes your natural nature, and it will happen through suppression of the senses over time. Hope you like this video. Please leave your comments below.